When I moved into that worn-down college apartment just off campus, I wasn't looking for anything except cheap rent and a quiet place to crash after long days of lectures and longer nights of part-time shifts. Then came Daniel, my new roommate, a last-minute addition arranged by the landlord. He strolled in with 2 duffel bags, a crooked smile, and an effortless charm that made people lean in just a little closer. He was the kind of guy who turned heads in the street, but acted like he didn't notice. Athletic, tall, all confidence and zero arrogance, and straight. He made sure to mention that early. "I don't care what anyone else is into," he said casually while unpacking. "I'm chill with everything. Just, I'm not wired that way." I nodded, not saying much. I never did, especially when it came to who I was. The truth was I'd spent years mastering the art of staying invisible. Daniel, on the other hand, was sunlight, warm, loud, and impossible to ignore. He played guitar badly, but sang like he meant it. He cooked disaster-class meals that somehow tasted amazing, and for some reason, he liked hanging out with me. We started spending more time together, movie nights, shared playlists, late-night ramen runs. At first, I thought he was just friendly. I told myself not to read into the long glances or the way he always sat a little too close. I reminded myself, he said he was straight. Besides, I wasn't about to make things complicated, not here. Not with him. Then came the blackout. A freak storm knocked the power out one Friday night. The apartment turned silent, lit only by the occasional lightning flash through the windows. I was curled up in my bed, scrolling through offline downloads, when he knocked on my door. "Dude, it's freezing," he said, rubbing his arms. "My room's like a meat locker." I laughed. "Not much better in here." He hesitated. "Mind if I crash next to you? Just for warmth. Totally chill, bro." I blinked. Yeah, sure." He climbed in beside me like it was the most normal thing in the world, pulled the blanket over both of us and settled in without another word. The bed wasn't big. Our shoulders touched, our legs brushed occasionally. I stared at the ceiling, every nerve wired and awake. He fell asleep, fast, breathing slow and steady. I stayed awake, caught between the quiet rhythm of his presence and the roar of my own thoughts. Nothing happened. Not a single word, not a single move. But the silence spoke volumes. And when morning came and sunlight slipped through the blinds, I realized I hadn't slept at all. Not because I was uncomfortable, but because for the first time in a long time I didn't feel alone. We had gone to sleep as roommates, but I woke up knowing everything was never going to be the same. After that night, something subtle shifted between us, not loudly, but like a quiet rearrangement of gravity. Daniel didn't say anything about sharing my bed, and I didn't bring it up either. But the next few days felt different. Not awkward, not tense, just charged like the air before a summer storm. He started lingering more. Our conversations got deeper, drifting into personal places I never expected him to go. He asked about my past, not in passing, but with real curiosity. When I hesitated, he waited. Patient, gentle. No jokes, no mockery, just space to speak. "Don't get how you're so comfortable with being alone," he said one night, spinning his fork in cold spaghetti. "I feel like I'd lose my mind without people around." "You're never alone," I replied, glancing at him. "Even when you are." He looked at me like he'd heard something he wasn't ready to understand. Then came the touches, not obvious, not deliberate, but not accidental either. A hand on my knee that lingered a second too long, a back pat that slid into something, closer, playful shoves that turned into soft grips on my arm. Every time I searched his face for answers. Every time I found none. One evening I found him waiting on the couch, our favorite movie already queued up. He was wrapped in a blanket, one half of it folded beside him. I took the invitation without a word, sinking into the warmth beside him. Halfway through the film, he rested his head on my shoulder. I didn't move. Couldn't. He didn't say anything, and neither did I. But I stopped breathing for a few moments, scared that the smallest shift would break whatever this was. Later, in the kitchen, he leaned against the counter, sipping soda straight from the bottle. The room was dim, quiet. Then softly he said, "You ever wonder if people aren't always what they say they are?" I froze. My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, still not looking at me. Like, maybe people tell themselves stories to feel safe, even if they don't really believe them. I wanted to ask what story he was telling, but instead I nodded, pretending to understand more than I did. That night we shared the bed again. No pretense, no explanation. Our fingers brushed beneath the covers. He didn't pull away, and for a brief moment I let myself believe. Maybe I was reading this right. Maybe he was afraid, just like me. Maybe he was figuring it out slowly, carefully, with me as his quiet witness. But even then, buried under layers of hope, something in my chest whispered, "Be careful." I ignored it. Because in that moment, love felt possible, and that possibility was more addictive than the truth. I spent days composing the words in my head, reciting them in the mirror with trembling conviction. I like you, not as a friend, not in passing, but in the way I've been too scared to admit. I didn't expect a declaration in return. I wasn't foolish enough to imagine a sweeping confession, but I hoped he'd at least listen, maybe take my hand again under the sheets. Maybe he'd finally say something real. The perfect moment came on a Sunday afternoon. We'd just come back from the farmer's market, arms full of groceries we didn't need. He made dumb jokes the whole walk home, and I laughed too hard, the way you laugh when you're secretly desperate for someone to keep talking. While he unpacked the bags in the kitchen, I stepped into the hallway to grab my phone. That's when I heard it. Daniel's voice floated through the thin walls, casual and amused. He was on a call. "Nah, I swear, bro, he's totally into me. It's kind of funny, actually. Like, he watches me like I'm some damn movie. But whatever, he cooks, he cleans, I'm not complaining." There was a pause, then muffled laughter. His. I just play it cool. Let him think what he wants, it's harmless. Harmless. The word sliced clean through me. I stood frozen, my hand still on the doorknob, the hallway suddenly colder than any storm. He knew, not only knew, but enjoyed it, fed off it. My silence, my affection, my careful hope. All of it. A quiet joke I hadn't realized I was a part of. I walked back into the room with practiced calm. He turned, smiling. "You good?" "Yeah," I said, forcing a shrug. "Just got a text, I'm heading out for a bit." "Want me to come with?" I shook my head, already reaching for my keys. "Nah, I'll be quick." I checked into a cheap hotel across town, sat on the edge of the bed and let the silence press down. I didn't cry, not right away. I just sat there, empty, staring at the wall like it might tell me what I did wrong. Was I stupid for believing him, for misreading the signs? Or was he crueler than he let on, so good at pretending, that I started believing in a version of him that never existed? Later that night, I lay on the stiff hotel mattress, staring at the ceiling. The sheets were thin. The light from a street lamp flickered through the blinds. I replayed every moment, every shared laugh, every glance, every time he chose to be near me, and I searched for signs I should have seen. But they were all there. Every touch, every word. And yet, none of it had ever belonged to me. I returned to the apartment 3 days later. No messages from him, no missed calls, just silence, the same kind I used to cherish, now turned sharp and unfamiliar. Daniel was in the living room when I walked in, feet propped on the coffee table, controller in hand. He looked up, grinned like nothing had changed. "Yo, thought you got kidnapped." I smiled thinly. "Just needed space." He nodded, eyes never leaving the screen. "All good, man." And that was it. No questions, no acknowledgements, no apologies, just business as usual. But I had changed. We still lived together, but I became a ghost in my own space, slipping past him with polite smiles, offering short answers, never lingering. I stopped laughing at his jokes, stopped cooking for two, stopped watching him when he wasn't looking. He noticed, of course. There were moments, brief, flickering, when he'd frown at the silence, like a part of him missed the attention. He used to drink in without asking, but he never asked why. And I never gave him the dignity of an explanation. One evening, I came home to find a girl sitting on the couch beside him. She was laughing, curled into his side like it belonged to her. He looked at her the way I once imagined he looked at me. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. There was no sharp stab of jealousy, only a hollow ache, the kind that comes when you finally see something for what it truly is. I stood in the hallway unseen, and then I turned, walked into my room and closed the door. I started packing a few days later, quietly, methodically. I didn't tell him until the morning of. He blinked at the suitcase. "You moving out?" "Yeah," I said, zipping the last compartment. "Found a place across town." A pause, then, "You mad at me?" I looked at him for a long time, searching for regret or guilt or even acknowledgement. But his face held only confusion, like he truly didn't understand the damage he'd done. "No," I said finally. "Not mad, just done." I left without slamming the door. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt my space, smaller, quieter, but mine. I learned to cook for one. I let the silence comfort me again. Sometimes I catch myself remembering him, not the real him, but the version I invented, the one who looked at me like maybe, just maybe, I could be enough. That boy never existed. But I did. I loved. I believed. And that truth is mine to carry, heavy, yes, but honest. He once told me he was straight, and I believed him. But the cruelest part wasn't that he lied. It was that I did too. To myself.